stage left, the audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. Curtain rises and the players come out. Webs of lies spinning from their mouths. Stop looking, listen for a little while. Pay no attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow bathing in your blood. It's never enough.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Wednesday, April the 26th, 2023. My name is Cliff. I am joined by Tim via Skype. We're coming to you live from Carter County, Tennessee. I'm up here on the Iron Mountain, and Tim is over on the other side of the valley. So glad to have you join us tonight. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and hit that like button right down there, subscribe right over there, and definitely go down in the comments or the description of the video and follow us on Rumble. Get us up to 100 subscribers over there so we can start streaming on multiple platforms. It'd be pretty sweet. Love to have you help us out with that. We do want to start off the show by sending our condolences to John from Iowa, viewer of the show. He has passed away, and so definitely want to send our blessings and condolences and prayers to his family. If everybody will kind of put your minds together and do all that. Sorry to hear that. We're glad to have you with us, John, and you know, all the best to your family out there and friends. Let's see here. Tim, our video that we did on, what was the video we just did Sunday? I just thought about it right before the show, and when I tried to think of it, I couldn't.
Cattle mutilation.
Yeah, that's right, cattle mutilation. Yeah, go back and check that out. Episode 82, I believe that was. Definitely look it up. And we just barely scratched the surface on it. You could watch documentaries on the subject for hours and hours, but we grazed it, I guess, and got into some fun discussions about the topic. Tonight, though, we're kind of getting into, in my opinion, Minority Report territory, which we'll get to here in a minute. I'm gonna give everybody a minute to get in here in the chat. If you're there in the chat, say what's up. Tell us where you're at. If we don't know you, we know a lot of you out there on the West Coast in particular. Tonight we're going to have a mostly local story-based show, but it is going to be universal, topics. So I think y'all can relate to them, whether or not you live in our local area. But to start it off here, do you remember the purple cow story?
I remember the restaurant. I don't know if it's still open in Kingsport or not.
I don't know if it is or not. Let's check that out. The Purple Cow was like a famous hamburger and hot dog restaurant in Kingsport. I mean, famous in the Tri-Cities. And
the menu was too big for me.
I drove by it today. It looked like it was still open. Pretty sure that they are.
Under ownership or something.
Yeah. Well, you heard about what happened with the last owners. I'm sorry?
So wasn't there like some kind of crazy story that happened with the owner like about 10 years ago or something?
Yeah, there sure was. So the Purple Cow looks like pretty delicious food. I've never eaten there. It looks like Pal's kind of thing, subs and burgers.
The menu's too big. I haven't eaten there probably in 15 to 20 years, but the last time I went there, their menu was literally everything from popcorn to lasagna to lobster and filet. It was huge. I was like, this is just overload. So maybe they've cut it back a little bit.
They have. It's got a lot, but well, it's a pretty big menu.
For like a drive-through. You know what I'm saying? Who goes
Right.
through like that little drive-through thing and says, "I want the lasagna"? How far is
Yeah.
that going to take the way home?
Well, they do have spaghetti, Italian taters, garbage taters, all different kinds of home fries, a bunch of. You're right. This is a huge menu. Just do a few things and do them well. You don't really need all that stuff. But the Purple Cow, though, it's under different ownership, and the former owner is back in the news today because, as Tim said, it was a big story about the Purple Cow owner several years ago, and then, like I said, she did sell it. But this lady, Sheila Keene Warren, now she was a co-owner of the Purple Cow. And evidently, if I remember this story correctly, what happened is she went dressed in a clown outfit and killed her husband's ex-wife, I believe it was. And she actually pled guilty to that this week. It was a murder in 1990 in Florida. She pled guilty to second-degree murder. Apparently, what's that?
So that's pretty weird.
It is pretty weird. She was shot in the face by someone wearing an orange wig, a red nose, and white face paint, who handed her carnations and foil balloons after she answered the door. This was back in May of 1990. This is from the Kingsport Times News. Keene Warren, she was an employee of Marlene Warren's husband, Michael, was considered a person of interest early on. And evidently, I guess she worked for the guy. Okay, so maybe... they some way or another they found I found the wig and found one of her hairs in it. I think it's the way that went. But she finally did a guilty plea 33 years after the death of the key witness, or 33 years after the murder, and there was the death of a key witness. And apparently it was the lead crime scene investigator too that died during that time, and it broke the chain of custody for critical evidence, is what the police said. But yeah, killer clowns. Are they real? Well, apparently in Kingsport they are, or Florida. This could only happen in Florida. I mean, as crazy as our area is, this is definitely a Florida woman move here. She did get a 12-year prison sentence. And let's see
12
here.
years? That's pretty lot.
Yeah, it's a second-degree murder case. So I'm not sure. She did say she was innocent for a long time, but
Second degree? Like, how is second? Well, hold on. I mean, they're going to second degree is like a crime of passion, but like,
yeah.
I can see how you would do that, but seeing how she was in a wrong state of mind, but that's pretty premeditated.
I mean, she did wear a clown disguise.
Yeah, I mean, which is probably what they used to show that she's separated from her mind or whatever. But man, you dressed up like a clown. You got dressed like you put on a costume.
You put some thought into this.
That's first degree, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do. I don't know how they ended up getting to second degree. Maybe they just weren't able to. Maybe they, it's hard to prove intent anyway. Maybe 33 years after the fact, it's even harder. So maybe they just.
Even still, like, you're going to give 12 years to someone who dressed up like a clown and went and shot somebody.
Yeah.
How would that person ever be allowed to see? Not to be judgy on people that have committed crimes, but if this woman dressed up like a clown and shot somebody in the face, I'm sorry. I think she's away from society more than 12 years, is all I'm saying. She's a danger.
It does seem like it's definitely premeditated, in my opinion. But yeah, we got, before we move on, let's check the chat. What's up, Joe? Yeah, we talked about the killer clown lady. The government of Elizabethton has put out something here. Let's see, where'd it go? Oh, I see. They've got a rotating thing here, so I'm going to have to go back to it. Here we go. The Elizabethton Police Department receives Rural Violent Crime Reduction Initiative grant. Tim, what would you think that they would do with the Rural Violent Crime Reduction Initiative grant? It's $150,000 or $149,999. What brilliant thing do you think the Elizabethton Police Department might do with that?
Rural crime. They mean like happens out in like the county?
Well, I mean, it would have to be in the city limits too. But I mean, I guess they're considering the town of Elizabeth in a rural area.
$150,000. Well, if you're
To
trying
reduce
to
crime.
reduce, like you would hire 2 new officers for that year. You know, that seems like the salary of 2 patrolmen, doesn't it?
Well, I wish the patrolmen got paid like that. They would probably.
I'm being generous. I'm
better.
assuming that they'd probably have to do some
Yeah, I guess.
uniform.
Yeah, accounting benefits and stuff too. Yeah. Well, no, that would make probably too much sense. But what they've decided to do is they are going to purchase automated license plate readers. That's right, an investigative tool, a real-time alert system that compares license plate to state and national databases for stolen vehicles, amber alerts, silver alerts, and vehicles listed on the hot list. The system increases the possibility of officers being able to locate vehicles involved in various incidents and crimes. So get this. Not only that, they're talking about
high-speed chases that they're having, because we've had a lot of them right here.
I don't know if that has to do with it or not, but I guess it could. They also say they're going to have a 3D laser scanning system to assist in crime scene documentation and reconstruction that would allow the department to conduct crime scene measurements, document the crime scene, and provide a more accurate depiction of the overall crime scene and crash scene. Okay, well, the 3D crime scene scanner, I could see how that would be. I don't know if that's how it's going to reduce crime, but I guess if you're following the premise that, arresting those responsible for the actions and getting them off the streets will reduce crime, that I can at least see where that's coming from. The license plate reader, I'm going to, you know where I'm going with this, Tim. I mean, I mentioned it earlier, are we going full on Minority Report here? Because, okay, what's the first thing? You ever seen a spy movie from like the 1960s? And the good criminals, well, what do? They change their license plates out. It makes their vehicle harder to track. So for one, somebody who is actually good at crime is you're not going to catch them with this, more than likely. For two, this is scanning and recording data on every car that passes through the area where this scanner is. And so one of the things that they mentioned is the ability to get hot vehicles. So what are they talking about there? They're talking about vehicles that they may see frequenting areas where, crimes may be reported or committed a lot. No, that sounds good. Well, we'll just catch the bad guys, because we'll be able to see their car and see their scan their license plate, and we'll know where they are, and we can send cops out to them right away. Okay. But you remember we have the Fourth Amendment in the country, but that's not really what this is about. It's more about the right of people to not have the government breathing down their neck and looking in on them every second of the day. And this is just more and more of this. And there's no evidence really, or little evidence, that surveillance cameras actually reduce crime. Think about how many bank robberies, how many assaults, how many shootings you've seen captured on camera. Now, has this slowed them down? It doesn't appear to have. And according to Tennessee, the University of Tennessee, the Research and Information Center they did in 2016, it seems that CCTV is most effective when combined with other crime-reducing deterring methods such as improved lighting, security guards, and defensible space. On its own, cameras have been shown to reduce vehicle crimes, especially in parking garages, but some studies showed an increase in crime after the installation of CCTV, and CCTV has not been shown to reduce violent crime. And they go on to explain the whole study out here, but basically it comes right down to, without extra manpower and without spaces set up for good lighting for regular people to be able to observe their surroundings, the cameras really don't have a benefit, and it's at the risk, it's at the cost of our personal privacy and security. Just think about this scenario. Imagine you work in a place where, and you see stuff like this all the time, all over the country. Cases of mistaken identity, cops knocking on the wrong door, kicking in the wrong door, pulling over the wrong car. You see this already like crazy. And then you have, sometimes violent altercations ensue, and sometimes innocent people are hurt. Sometimes people fight back when they know they haven't done anything wrong, and the cops going to arrest them for something else entirely. Well, imagine you're driving by a known drug area or something, as they call them, and you drive by that on your way to work every day, and imagine that scan starts picking you up every time you go by there. Well, that's going to catalog you in a database of cars that frequently visit that area, and they're going to start watching you. And then when your car is somewhere near something else that's going to happen, there's a good chance that we've seen this car down there, this hotspot area, and they were also in the vicinity of this when this happened. So it not only creates a risk of a bad arrest, but also, in the invasion of privacy, but it also just gives the cops so many targets that you can't focus on everybody. You need to have a target and go after it. And again, this makes it more difficult to do that. And then it may make it more easy for them to track everybody in town. But I don't see that it helps. And criminals will only find ways to avoid it. Meanwhile, everybody who will not replace the license plate on their car is being scanned and tracked everywhere they go in town. Any thoughts, Tim? Hey, what's up, Spill?
I don't know. Simply, I don't know. Like I'm not really. I feel like we reach a weird position where we want cops to do their job, then we don't want them to do their job because we don't like the means for how they've decided to do their job. Yeah,
well, for one, I don't think it's up to the police to decide that they get to watch us all the time. That's one thing. But yeah,
well,
go ahead.
I guess you'd defund the police then, because
no, I think it's perfectly fine to have police, but it's not fine for the police to say, "Oh, well, we've just decided this is how we're going to police now, with no changes in laws or policy at the city or county level." That the police on their own just decide that this is how they're going to do it for everybody who goes through town.
I mean, yeah, I get the point that we don't want to be under a surveillance state, but at the same time, like I've been watching, the scanners and stuff, and we've got a lot of high speed chase. We're getting a lot of runoff crime coming from other states. I mean, they had a cannonball run the other day. You know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they have one of those. So I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of stuff coming through, and I guess maybe we don't like the stuff that goes on to deal with.
Well, that's true. I mean, you could also to stop crime, you could have the police, just kick down every door in town until they found the person they were looking for. But that wouldn't be warranted. It would be an invasion of people's privacy and a violation of their rights. And I feel like even though that's a hyperbolic demonstration or a hyperbolic example, just think about how hyperbolic this would have seemed years ago. It's like over and over we add more and more stuff on it. Like, oh well, let's. We'll just make things easier on the cop. Nobody would ever use this in the wrong way. And then when it gets used in the wrong way, they're like, oh, we could have never seen this coming. Who would have ever thought? And it just happens over and over again with all these systems that are abused. Let's see, chat here. Joe says the killer clown said she'll be released in a year because she served 6 years already. She'll be out in about 10 months with time served. How about that?
Let's see if we can get her on the show. We'll interview her. Ask her if she has a clissy.
Ask if she has a... Oh, no. I think I'll leave that one to you, brother.
That's a weird culture. It's getting big today. Clown girl culture. I don't know. Clown girl culture includes murdering people.
Well, the killer clowns from outer space, I guess it would. And, I don't know. It's just a bizarre thing, man. Only somebody, that's a Tri-Cities in Florida connection story for sure.
You mean the clown thing? I don't know. There's been a rise on people identifying with the whole clown thing recently.
Well, that's not surprising.
I'll send you a link after we get off of someone that is also doing the clown thing that I'm aware of. Like I actually know quite a few people on my Facebook feed that are cheekily, is that a word to use? That are playfully into clown stuff.
Yeah.
I personally don't like it. I find it creepy. They seem to be having fun with it. But I also know of another person that is doing the clown thing, but they're straight up doing like the creepy one, like the Joker thing, like threatening people while dressed up as a clown and all kinds of creepy shit. So I just wonder what that connection is of why clowns are scary to us.
Yeah.
Why suddenly crazy people just suddenly decide they're going to dress up like clowns these days when they're going to commit crimes. It's just a weird connection.
I think it's also kind of weird that people, do you think some people just pretend to be afraid of clowns because that's like the cool thing to be afraid of? Do you ever think that?
It's a cool thing to be afraid of. I know of one person that genuinely is, but it's not like a jump out of your skin. You can tell it just genuinely makes him uncomfortable.
Creeps him out. I wish I could remember this thing that B showed me a couple years ago. It was like, somebody said something about, is he wearing a clown suit or is that an actual clown? The comment, like, what the fuck is an actual clown? But
yeah. Like, well, some people, like, nobody's going to give Star the Clown a hard time if she's just out running around, And I still see that van from time to time. So,
yeah, I was going to ask, is old Star still working?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, unless there's somebody's out there using the Star the Clown van to do like drywall and tin roofing or something.
I guess that's possible.
I bet Star's still going,
So, yeah,
Never met her.
Spill says if they're watching her, they'd be waste of time and resources because she's boring. And most of us are, Spill. But I mean, that's part of the problem is they're constantly watching people who haven't done anything wrong, and it's like you show me the man, I'll show you the crime. We've talked before about the 3 felonies a day, and even though Tim doesn't believe it, it's still easy to commit a crime without realizing you're doing it. So this allows basically, what do they call it? Anarcho tyranny, where basically the big wigs at the top of things don't get in trouble for anything, but then we got a whole, crap ton of petty laws at the local and state level and the federal level too, that really just, you're in violation of one of them at some time or another. And they could pretty much decide to turn it on you at any time. So just like this, when you're passing by the hot spot, then you've opened yourself up to this surveillance. Maybe you're just driving to work, but suddenly your car's driving past a known drug house every day. So we're going to watch where else you go, and we're going to see what else you do, and we're going to look at everybody else in town. Well, guess who else is setting them up? Kingsport. They already installed these things. According to WJHL, the Kingsport Police Department unveiled the installation of Flock Safety automated license plate reading cameras throughout the city on Tuesday. And according to KPD, their agency is the first in Northeast Tennessee to implement this kind of technology. Well, good for you. Good for you. These cameras are where officers can't always be, says the KPD's public information officer. It's kind of a force multiplier for law. Law enforcement agencies are all understaffed in the county and struggling with staffing, so it basically puts an extra set of eyes and ears all throughout the city to watch for stolen vehicles and wanted subjects and things like that. So they kind of do the same thing, track, looking for specific vehicles and including the make, model, license plate, even unique features like dents or stickers. And then they send that back to KPD with location, time, and date of the frequency of the vehicle included. So if there's somebody we're looking for, we don't even have their tag number. It can oftentimes alert on that, it says. So they don't have to have the tag number. They're looking, let's hope you don't, there's somebody in a red Ford Fusion or whatever, and hope you're not in a similar car. Again, I'm all for stopping people who are harming the community and catching people who are harming other people. But this is absurd overkill. We're talking Minority Report stuff here, because this is eventually, we're talking order of protection laws. Well, you've been in this certain place with drugs. Well, let's get a order of protection So, which that didn't pass. The Tennessee State House did say they weren't going to do that, which is, thank goodness. But that just shows you the mindset of these people. They would love to be able to catch you going past a known drug house or catch you in the vicinity of a crime and then put an order of protection on you and take firearms without running you through due process of the court. They're already, tracking your whereabouts without due process of the court. They're under gentleman's law. What does that mean, Spill? Do you know gentleman's law, Tim?
I do not.
I'm not familiar. Oh, okay, just a gentleman's agreement. Informal, unwritten agreements between two parties to undertake a transaction or or a commitment. Yeah. Yeah, they're not legally binding, though, or backed by, a person's reputation, integrity, the peer pressure of those around you to keep your word. So it's a little different. These guys, they decide this is what they're going to do. They do it. It looks like in Kingsport it was done by the police too, without the city council, by another grant. Let me just look here to the press release according to Kingsport PD. Yeah, they've got, they are tied to a vast array of cameras in over 2,000 cities in 42 states across the country. So this is not just Kingsport. This is a global or a world, nationwide surveillance grid that's being set up. And we're going to feed our people right into that too. It says they report an average 120 of the hot tag alerts per hour across their nationwide network of cameras. So they're constantly getting these things. They already can't get to these, when people call the police and need them, they already can't get to them. They're going to have them chasing down, random cars from the license plate number and tailing them. And it just seems like a misuse of resource, invasion of privacy, and an all over dangerous thing. And where does it lead to? Well, have you heard about the Fed Now payment system?
No.
Okay,
I don't think they're going to go chasing tags. Don't you think the camera system is more for, so you don't have to constantly be tracking people? You can just use the cameras and have that as evidence later.
It sure is, but they're using it as an investigative tool too. That's the problem. It's not a smart weapon. It takes out everybody, and so it can lead to abuse. And not only that, it's a nationwide system. So you're feeding this information in on everybody here to people out of town, it's not just like the police are the only ones having access to this. And again, there's little evidence that these things actually help anything. And it also, you got stuff like they collected data that's not related to individuals suspected of crime, right? And then they shared this data out, sold this data, gave it inappropriately to people. They found that in Vermont, 11% of ALPR searches violated state restrictions on when cops can and can't look at the data. So already, just in Vermont, that's 11% of the time they violated it openly, accessing data that they shouldn't have been, violating people's privacy. There's again, it's going nationwide, and it can automatically flag that, like, look for a car with dents or poor paint jobs. So now you're, flagging, say, a blue CRV with damage on the passenger door, rather than for specific vehicles, just like they said. So it's we can all agree, like, a dragnet is not right. You don't just go around harassing everybody in town to try to find one person, and that's pretty much what they're doing there. You can't just go,
It's just I I'm not pro police state, but at the same time, I really, and maybe the argument is going to be that it's going to get to what you're talking about at some point. But like they literally don't have the resources to check every single car that goes through those cameras.
Oh, but here's the thing, Tim. They don't have to. It's just like the systems that collect everything we say over the phone. It's an invasion of privacy, whether they use it or not. But they're collecting the information and they're looking at everything, right? So even if they don't, track your car right away because you're not the one they're looking for, they still have a record that your car has been here, 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 and here. And they're still keeping a database of that. And what's that?
Yeah, my internet provider knows every single kind of porn I like. And I'm not exactly sure, like...
But your internet provider can't come and arrest you, Tim. Your internet can't come and pull you over and pull a gun on you until you get out of the car because that you looked like somebody that, your car looked like somebody else that they were looking for.
Okay. But I mean, like, what's the odds that they're going to do that to us?
They do it every day already, Tim.
In Carter County?
I don't know about particularly Carter County, but it happens all over the country. There's raids on the wrong house, wrong car, all the time. Even around here, yeah, I can't think of any specific instances that are off the top of my head. But yeah, I've heard plenty of times over the years of people getting, mistaken identity or going to the wrong door. Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's a weird spot to put society in. When we allow, trying to get my camera to sit straight here. I had to plug it in, but it makes my camera sit up like an inch on this little diddly bob on the charger, so I have to balance it perfectly like a Zen master that I am not. Like, what's the answer for the police then? Like, if times evolve and technology evolves and everything evolves, but the police are never allowed to stay up with the technology, like, is that just how it has to be? The cops have to be.
No, the cops can subpoena other people's cameras. They can, they can film what they're doing on themselves in public. They got all kinds of options that they use. If the cops want to find somebody, they can find somebody.
But I'm saying, like, but that's just an evolved version of the cameras. Is they're just putting up more cameras.
Yeah, but you're not collecting data on everybody who drives through the town every day, 24 hours a day, and compiling it into a large database.
Okay. So if you got rid of the database, you're okay with it?
More okay, but no. It's like we keep doing all these things. They're like, oh, if we don't watch out, this country's going to hell. We're going to end up in an Orwellian police state. Well, let's just put some more cameras in place. Oh, let's give the government more ability to get into your personal life or to arrest you or track you. And then before you know, we've got full-on fucking Minority Report, and we're like, how did we get here? We didn't think anybody would ever use this the wrong way. We were going to use it for good, but now we've got a system that can be taken advantage of by someone with ill intent to basically do whatever they want. And there's stories all over the country too of cops, abusing their authority. I mean, it's not like it's a new thing. It goes back. Yeah. It goes back to the beginning of the country.
Are we going to associate the people who own the cameras with the same people who are on the beat?
With the same people who are on the beat?
Yeah.
Street cops. Like, not necessarily, no. I mean, the beat cops would be using those, but no, it's a separate thing.
Typically, like the street cops are typically the ones you find out are doing the planting drugs on criminals or unnecessarily roughing up a 16-year-old girl or doing all the things that you're talking about. Cops abusing their authority. I'm saying, like, I don't know. I'm in a weird spot with the whole cop thing because I feel like neither side is taking a fair stance against the cops. And that's all I'm trying to do. Because well, it's almost like bifurcated in three sections, and you're not necessarily unique in this position because, like, I know a lot of libertarian-minded people that don't like cops, but I just.
It's not that I don't like cops, man. I mean, I think you're fundamentally misunderstanding where I'm coming from. But go ahead. Sorry.
no, you're really anti-cop. Like, if we want to be fair about it, like to be fair about it, like I'm probably more cop than I like to admit as a pretty anti-authoritarian individual. I just don't like the idea that I have to go and fight people. Like, so if we're going to have people that want to be paid to go out there and fight people that are criminals, I'd rather have those people existing. And if that system is going to exist, then you're going to have bad people sneak in and, be bad cops.
And same here, and that's my exact position on it too, man. I don't hate cops. I'm not anti-cop. I'm against a lot of the laws that the cops are supposed to enforce, and I'm against a lot of the tools that the cops use to do it. But I'm not against the cops arresting people who hurt other people. I'm not against that at all. What I am against is, like you said, giving those people who are abusing the authority like that more ability to use that authority and more investigative tools that won't help them track down specific individuals, or they may in some cases, but will allow them to cast a broad net for everyone, including people who've done nothing wrong, people who are just trying to go to work, people who, are just driving through town. It's none of the police's business how many times you drive through town. If you're suspected of a crime, then they can start watching you and start tracking that stuff on you. But until you're suspected of a crime, there's no reason to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
And they have no authority to do that.
But at the same time, saying we shouldn't be tracking all these everyday ordinary people is the same way. It's the same thing as, to me, the same thing as saying we don't need to turn the security system on except on nights where we think criminals are going to show up. How else are they supposed to track it if they just don't track the road all the time? Because that's where normal people drive. That's where criminals are going to drive.
Well, that's why the cops drive down the road. That's why you have beat cops on the road.
So they're just supposed to memorize every tag they see?
No, they're supposed to, when they see something suspicious, they're supposed to be on the lookout for certain tags. And then if they see something suspicious or somebody calls them, then they're supposed to go after that. Not just they're not just supposed to sit around, Well, I guess they are supposed to sit around, but they're not supposed to just have access to everybody's information all the time. Just like they shouldn't be able to have your phone all the time. Well, you're not doing anything wrong, Tim. Why don't you give them your phone number? Why don't you let them have access to all your texts all the time? Because that'd be an invasion of your privacy. It's an invasion of your privacy for them to be watching you and tracking you everywhere you go. And
I get that, but they're trying to sell me like hover. Quit doing that. They're trying to sell me hover carts and like, I don't know, for some reason Doritos apparently like that. So like when they track my info and stuff like with Google, they're trying to sell me stuff. Whereas like on the road, I don't think it's the same thing really. Like because one is trying to find there is a difference in my head. I'm just not sure exactly what it is to put it into words as far as like Google tracking me versus the cops. It's like I think the reason everybody is okay with Google tracking them is because in the end they know they're trying to sell them crap. And I know like the ultimate end of it would be like Skynet, but like right now they're just trying to sell us diapers and shit. Whereas like the cops, I know your reason for being wary of it is because you look at the end game of the big picture and Skynet stuff too. It's just like, I guess if you take the mainframe off of it, like I'm trying to find a way to still make it okay for criminals to keep up with the extreme, or for cops to keep up with the criminals without.
Again, as soon as you put these in place, though, if you're a criminal, are you going to drive through town in a license plate in a car, if you know these things are around? Yeah, no, that's not saying they won't get a few people with it. But before too long, the criminals will know not, to avoid them. They'll know where not to go to stay away from these things. They'll know to change license plate, to change vehicles. They'll figure out ways around this. Meanwhile, the system will continue collecting data on everybody else who won't bother to do that. I mentioned the Minority Report system, but it's all part of this big, the global technocracy, the smart city that I've been talking about ever since this show started. And one of the things that the World Economic Forum and other groups that have pushed these smart city agendas have one of these things that they've been going for is a system of a universal basic income with a social credit score based on how you follow the norms of society. So, whatever the decided norms of society are, it could change at any given time. You consider the way, what are considered societal norms now is totally up, on its end from what we would consider social norms 30 years ago. And, that happens ever so often. But the point is, none of these policies are based or grounded in any fundamental they're not based or grounded in any fundamental what's the word I'm looking for? Morality. They're just arbitrary. And they'll tell you what it is to be moral from one week to another, and you're supposed to change your behavior based on it. Like a good example of it would be, the climate change. That's one of the things that they've really pushed for, and they've not done it successfully in a lot of places, but they really want you to have a carbon credit system where you have an allotted amount of carbon, and if your carbon is low enough, you're allowed to do some things, and if it's not low enough, you're allowed to do other. And this kind of thing is how they're going to implement that. This is how they're going to implement that. If your social credit score is too low, you won't be able to spend your money. You won't be able to travel certain places. You'll be geo-fenced out of areas that you want to go. And for right now, it might just be people who have committed violent crimes. But what if it later is you can't afford the proper pollution control on your car? Yeah, I know, Tim, everybody should follow the law and put the proper pollution control on your car. But what if you can't and you still need to get to work? Well, then, they're going to cut off your route to work. They're going to cut off your money, so you won't be able to spend it. You won't be able to make any more money. It's all kinds of... if you look at this, like you said, from the big picture, the mainframe, the end game that they're actually going for, the people who are selling them these camera systems, the people who are implementing them in other communities, it's being done with this aim in mind. And so when you get right down to it, okay, law enforcement may not have an ill intent for this. They may be perfectly clean-hearted. They may be perfectly genuine in their intent to use it to help the public. But at the same time, you're setting up a system that is connected to an outside system in 2,000 cities. All this is connected and run by somebody else. So you're just wait until they start geofencing and cut off where you're allowed to go, where you're allowed to spend money, stuff like that, because that's ultimately what they have in mind. And we're going to be sitting here saying, how did we get here? It wasn't like this when I was a kid. Well, it's because you let it come in one little step at a time because you said it would never be used for anything bad, and then you don't look at how the pieces fit together. But they do fit together. It's not just a coincidence that everything that these people propose going forward has to do with some amount of tracking your data, cataloging everything you do, putting some kind of extra control over you, be it digital or physical, in some cases combinations. It's not a coincidence.
No, that's the problem is I do see the big picture, and I do see how all the pictures fit together. I just am 100% sure that we can't do anything about it. I think it's more just discussing the future more than doing anything about it.
I think if we care enough, we can do something about it. I mean, if you tell these people, what's that?
We're going to stop the World Economic Forum.
You can stop its policies from being implemented on your local level, yes, if you raise your voice and actually care about it enough to get other people to raise their voices too, and that your local government and city councils and county commissions, state representatives know that you're not happy with something. They still want to be reelected. So, if they're afraid that they may not be reelected, you may get a lot further than you think, especially if you can raise a big stink. And that's pretty much what I'm here to do. I mean, for all the intellectual arguments, for all the political arguments, somebody just watching you all day everywhere you go and tracking your location with a camera is not something you do to a free adult human being, is it? I mean, let's just be real.
No, I don't think it is, but I also think it's masochistic. What's the word? Masochistic almost to like watch the big looming scary dark cloud, like, you know what I'm saying, like to watch all the evil workings of wicked men. Like, does that not depress the hell out of you?
No, because I feel like if we actually do something about it, we can stop this. We can get enough people to realize where we're heading before it gets too late. I think so many people probably don't even, like you said, I know you do understand how all this works together, and I know you're trying to take a devil's advocate point to a degree too. And then, I'm sorry?
I said, I do always take the devil's advocate point, but I'm starting to lean into this other direction where like this kind of stuff, I hear it talked about pretty regularly now. And I'm actually starting to get concerned with what happens when the entire population just sits here and talks about the evil woes of bankers and systems and stuff. Because when the left got hyper focused on social justice, it absolutely turned it into a freak show. So what's going to happen when the right totally decides that they're going to fix the government? It's just going to be.
Well, I'm hoping that they'll. I mean, really. I mean, really, all you have to do is push the brakes on all this stuff. I mean, for everything else.
Works though.
Well, I know. I'm just saying, as far as if people actually did want to do something about it. I mean, our privacy's been, our rights have been eroded for decades now. I mean, pretty much since the country started, the government started trying to find ways to do away with your protections as a citizen. And, you know, the Constitution is definitely not perfect, neither is the Bill of Rights, but it, you know, anarchists like to say it's either, you know, wholly impotent or it's allowed us to get where we are right now. So either way, it's not, you know, not worth the paper it's printed on, or something like that is what they say. But I think that there has to be some argument made that there are people who, the people in government do tend to respect the process and all the, or at least they did for a long time, respect that the processes be followed out according to the way they're written down, and the laws be followed, and the statutes be followed. I think that's kind of on its way out now, and while it's, I mean, and although, like I said, you've been around these PTA moms and, you know, city council, school board moms, you see how seriously they take this stuff. Have you ever been to any kind of organized governmental body or organized even a homeowners association? You see how serious people take the bylaws and the rules and regulations of these bodies. But like I said, it's kind of in a decline as the ability of these bodies to implement more and more dangerous things happen. As that advances, people's care for following the process and making sure they're doing things like respecting people's rights and protecting people's rights, that seems to be on the way down. It's all just, it's kind of like in the 80s, the way the conservatives kind of just wanted to shut everything down and keep everybody from having access to anything that they didn't like, whether it be music, well, although I know Democrats were on that too, but whether it be music or movies or television shows or, garbage pail kids or whatever. They clamped down in a way that they really didn't have the authority to do, and it actually just forced the more rebellious to become more rebellious, or to find sneakier ways to do it. But at any rate, it did not succeed in its aim of, not having America be filthy, and this won't succeed in its aim of keeping crime off the streets. And if it did, it would have to be in a minority report type situation, which, although it would stop crime, is the ultimate danger for human liberty and freedom. Hey, Spill, let's see. You're quite certain you're on every list there is, and you're okay with that, maybe even proud. They can find anyone they want for sure, except Bin Laden. But I know they know where he is. Hey, did you see the reports out of the Guantanamo Bay hearings that the some of the 9/11 hijackers were actually either informants or being sought out to be informants by the CIA, and that it's official now that apparently that was happening. We'd long suspected that these guys might be operatives or contractors or informants of some sort, and it does appear that that's the case, but I didn't have that pulled up for tonight. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they would never embed people into the country with the intent to use them as patsies to carry out an attack so that it could, enlarge the surveillance state and then grow into, go overseas. Americans wouldn't do that, would they? Surely their good human nature would restrain them from taking advantage of that tremendous power. You give humans authority, and you give them too much access to it, and too much power without enough checks, and the results are never good. Just like most of the Patriot Act uses in the first 10 years of it, at least, were local law enforcement agencies. They were calling things terrorism so they could go bust people that they didn't have enough evidence on. That was mostly local law enforcement that was doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could go the rest of my life without confirming that the CIA was involved in 9/11 because, we've been talking about that for a long time. And I guess I'm hyper focused on what else though. Like that's what I'm hyper focused on because like Jim Brewer, the friggin' comedian, has a conspiracy show. So it's like
yeah, his last special was all about like the COVID conspiracy.
Oh.
You got a canine invader?
Yeah, my dang dogs are trying to get just anything they can get involved in. They find trash. I don't even know where it came from. So that's what I'm really hung up on. Like, I don't know how to. I don't know how to embrace that idea of talking about conspiracies and the bad things that the government's doing and stuff is actually so mainstream now that most people do it on a daily basis. Like it comes up on JRE. It comes like most people, like even like on the Democrat side when they're watching Hassan Piker, and it's still all governmental bad stuff, which still falls under the realm of conspiratorial stuff. And so my mind is going to like what happens now that everybody, like once upon a time, like 9/11 was an inside job, was like one of the only done like the crazy guy that you knew would say something like that.
Yeah.
And that's just a workaday thing for people to talk about, And I'm just wondering, like, all right, what now? Like we talk a big game about fixing government and stuff, and I just don't know how you do it. Like, how do you reverse a Patriot Act, for example? And since I'm too dumb to know how to reverse a Patriot Act, I don't know where the conversation goes now that Jim Brewer has a show about conspiracies.
Where it goes is to the local level and make sure that this stuff doesn't get expanded down to where, like I said, I'm pretty sure they've actually fixed that, but to where we get stuff where local law enforcement can just listen to your phone whenever they want, to where they can just track your vehicle wherever you're going, to where they can have a system of cameras going up through town where they could just follow anybody they want, see what anybody they want's doing. You might have an angry cop. Think about how often cops have domestic violence issues. It's it's kind of a stereotype, but it does happen. It's a stereotype for a reason, because it does happen a statistically significant amount of the time. And think about those cops, how they'll sometimes use their police authority to take advantage of that. Well, you're following your wife. You're a cop. You're following your wife, and you see she's going to an ex-boyfriend's house, and then what do you do then? You stake her out, or do you who knows? Do you call the cops on them for some bullshit thing, saying that it looks like this looks like a vehicle that we're tracking on the system. Look out, subject may be armed and dangerous. I mean, stuff like that happens. Just like the red flag laws. People where you'll have angry exes. Like there was one guy, I think it was in North Carolina. This guy, he called and reported, said his ex was crazy, and she was threatening to, I don't know if he said she was threatening to kill people or whatever, but she said she was crazy, she's a danger to herself and others, and she needs to have her firearms removed. So the cops came and removed her firearms without a warrant, and then he went in and killed her. So that might be an outlier right now, but it has the potential to be the norm, and you don't want to open that door to that possibility.
Couldn't you use that same argument against guns, though? That removing the idea of the thing altogether removes the possibility of it happening? Because a lot of the times with the law thing, I know we don't live in a perfect world, but I really don't expect people to abuse power. But when you start using like individual cases, you could start doing the exact same thing to guns, you know?
Elaborate a little, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, saying this particular cop used his abuse of power to remove firearms from his ex so he could go hurt her later. Like, that's a very specific example of police abuse where I could say the exact same thing because a gun exists and because they used one at Sandy Hook. You know, don't give the cops the power. There's an asshole that's going to go beat his wife. Don't give people the ability to have guns. One of them might shoot a school up.
Well, this is different though, because I'm a free human being and I have that ability. Meanwhile, the police are hired by free human beings to protect them from destructive human beings, or to arrest those. It's really to protect those destructive human beings from the free human beings fighting back themselves. I mean, that's the whole reason we have a police system, is so that when somebody commits a crime, say somebody, murders somebody's daughter or is accused of murdering somebody's daughter, that we call the police and they go arrest them lawfully and put them through due process, rather than just a mob of people deciding that they did it and going and taking the law into their own hands. So it's a lot different when you're a public person who's been hired with that trust versus a member of the public who has, there's you have every right to defend yourself and have the ability to defend yourself, and whether you use a firearm happens to be the most effective tool for defending yourself, but there are many ways to kill people without a firearm. So I don't think the argument quite adds up.
That's the whole reason I'm saying it, is because when you start using individual cases of cops as an excuse not to give cops power, that quite literally doesn't add up. Same way with guns. You shouldn't ban guns because of a bad siege. You shouldn't not let the cops have cameras because one of them might spy on his ex-girlfriend, Well,
it's not because one of them might. It's because they've been caught doing it over and over again, and why would you give them the ability to further exploit that?
People do shoot up schools, and they're going to do it.
And when they do, they lose their right to carry that arm. That individual person does. And
they lose their right to live if they shoot up a school.
Right, and well, that's what I'm saying. They lose their right to freedom. They forfeit their rights. Okay, the cops
are the ones that have to do
it. They don't have the natural right to spy on you and watch everything you do. So it's a different situation. You do have the natural right.
Though.
Huh?
They can do it already, though. I can spy on you if I want to.
Right, but it's wrong, and if it's wrong, and if I reported you to the authorities, then you could get in trouble for it. But this is saying they can do that as much as they want without following due process, and it's not wrong.
I'm arguing that they already can, though.
Oh yeah, I agree. They already can. But what I'm saying is, knowing they already can, and knowing the amount that to the extent which their authority can already be abused, why do we give them a tool which allows them more abuse of authority? It's invasive to privacy. It is not overall. It's going to collect so much data that's going to be hard to be helpful. And again, there's criminals will find ways to avoid it. I'm not saying that it's not going to catch some people. I'm saying that it's not, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Not saying it wouldn't work for what they say it does, but the juice ain't worth the squeeze. There's too much extra on it other than just what they say it does. It's like when they pass those bills in, the Congress or the State House, where they call it, I don't know, the We Love Puppies Act. And then somewhere in the bill, there's like $2 million to kill puppies at the end of it. There's always some other. Do what?
It's usually called an earmark.
Yeah, it could be an earmark. Yeah.
It's usually one of the more absurd ones. I think it was something that Obama passed, and there was a dude who was going down. I want to say it was on one of the internet sites. He was reading it off and finding all this extra stuff that was padded into this bill, and one of them was super specific. It was no taxes on wooden arrowheads in a certain state. And it was so weird. The internet detectives did some figuring. They found out that a certain senator or something like that had like a casino investment where they sold these like Native American trinkets and crap like that. And it's like, man, they get real specific on how they can save money by tagging these itty bitty little things inside of these big bills. Because who would think to look for no tax on Indian artifacts in a state? You know,
absolutely. But well, it's 11 o'clock. I think we could sit here and go back and forth on it in the same way a little longer, but I think that's probably good for tonight. Y'all know where I stand. I think you understand Tim's point. I do. I don't think Tim's.
I understand my point. I think I'm just allowing the conversations to. Because my whole point with arguing with everything that comes out of Cliff and Goff's mouth is usually because I'm having a hard time reconciling YouTube and stuff like that in general, because there's probably like 15 other people right now talking about the exact same stuff as we are. So it's like I'm trying to find some kind of an angle to make it useful. Like I don't know, doesn't that seem like that's a lot of what goes on?
Yeah. I appreciate what you do there.
Repetition of the same stuff, and like it really starts to wear on me after a while that people are still doing like the Epstein stuff, and it's like, yeah, I get it. He didn't kill himself. What are we going to do about it? You know, so It's like I'm just annoyed at It's like we're in an information culture where everybody wants to know a lot of stuff, but then nobody is ever actually going to do anything, and that's not me. You know, not even saying I'm like a doer. I'm not so sure I have time to take all the burdens of all the world and all the bad shit and just store it in some little compartment in the back of my head and, you know, use it as entertainment. Because it seems like that's what a lot of people are doing, is using the downfall of everything as just entertainment.
Well, I think that may be, but I also think it's at the same time, there's a restructuring in the way that we get information and entertainment. And it is coming to a more decentralized version, and it's also part of that. And I think that's important. Is you take Twitter for example. The way they do their fact checking on Twitter is they show something to people of different persuasions. They basically have juries, and you know, if they when the juries get together, they come up with, is this true or is it not? Okay, this is why we think that this is correct. This is why we think this is not correct, but it's still open for people to look. So it's open source information solving, and it's open sourced fact checking, and even if you don't agree with the fact check, you can still open it up and see how they came to that conclusion and what evidence they used to determine that. So I think that's kind of the way that the independent media is working right now to a degree. Now, there are some things like people will repeat false claims a lot in independent media, but it's not like that doesn't happen in the mainstream corporate media. But what I think we're seeing is we're seeing a restructuring of that, and people, instead of, you know, being three news guys that get their news out to, you know, everybody in, you know, between the three of them, they get everybody in the country. Now you're seeing it break down to, okay, well, there's this one channel that has, you know, 400 viewers. There's one channel that has 1,000 viewers, and they are all posting and sharing and reporting on information in different ways. And eventually you're going to have a clear picture come together of who's got their facts straight, who doesn't. You know, does this line up with this person says? Oh, it doesn't. Well, let's look this up and see who got it wrong. You're seeing a lot of this coming together, and it's only in a certain percentage of the population right now. But I think that's the whole point of this game right now, is to try to help people who are still watching Fox News, who are still watching MSNBC, who are still watching CNN or network news, to realize that it's all a show. That these journalists are, you know, they're paid to do a certain thing, whether it's you know, support their advertisers or to advance propaganda in one way or another. They all have their purpose, and that's what they're going to fulfill. And if they step out of line with that, like, you know, I don't know who knows why Tucker Carlson just got fired from Fox News, but he was like their most successful person of all time, and they fired him. And it's because he was, I feel like it's because he was talking about stuff that they didn't want talked about on their network, and, you know, he had creative control, and love him or hate him, he was an independent person, and I don't think they liked that, and I don't think they wanted Tucker Carlson to be he's already the face of Fox News, and so I think it's like, do you want to let him get bigger and bigger before he quits and then takes everybody with us, or do you want to cut him loose now But now they're putting him into the independent media. So you got guys that never would have been in media, like Joe Rogan. Think about the impact that he has. This never would have happened 20 years ago. So I know you do get, I don't know what the word is, jaded maybe, from all of it. But it does have a purpose, even though if it is evident all the time. It is a sign of things moving in the right direction. In order for people to do anything about any of these things, we have to have a discussion about how it affects them and why they should care about it. And so that's what I think we're doing here and there. It's not just just playing violin on the deck of the Titanic. It's not just reveling in the destruction. I think it does have a purpose, but in order to create any kind of broader movement, there has to be some sort of discussion about these things, and it's just not happening, at least on our local level. That you didn't see anything in any of the press releases or any of the news channels stories about these things being negative. It's just, oh, good, the police are going to be able to catch bad guys better. So I think you're definitely playing your role in that, Tim, and I appreciate your contribution, because these ideas should be checked. They should be challenged, no matter who's presenting the ideas. Whether it's me, if it's something I agree with or disagree with, then that's how we see what ideas are good or bad. And so I think that's all part of it. And even though, in some cases we may just disagree for the show, in some cases we may disagree in real life. But the fact is, I think we both have a better understanding of the issue when we discuss it the way we do. And I think everybody could benefit from it. Anything else, Tim? Oh, we got I missed some chats here. Good night, Spill. She's talking about, when will it all be revealed? All will be revealed. Yeah, Kashmir. Can't do much about it, but I do want to know what's up to what. Who's up to what? Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, like I said, you kind of see which way the wind's blowing, but I think you can do something about it. I don't know about how much, how much impact you'll have, but I personally just can't sit back and not do anything. So I'm doing what I can. I'm speaking. I'm putting a show on 2 times a week where I put these things out that are important to me, and hopefully spread around. I'm writing my state representatives and senator and county commissioners and school boards, and go to the school board meetings if there's something. So that's what I can do. That's one thing.
What if I did all that?
Huh?
Like, honestly, like if I had to do all of the things that you just listed, either my head would explode or I'd have to like rip my own nuts off and eat them. Like really, the thought of me writing my congressman makes me want to vomit.
I don't actually write my federal congressman person, but I do write my state reps, and it does work. And if you go to the school board meetings and you raise enough hell, they
I mean, does it though?
Yeah, it does. They were going to keep, just take the masks. They were going to keep those kids in masks for another year. And I went down to the school board 3 times, and the 3rd time, and they were out of there. And because it wasn't just that I did it. It was after I was in the newspaper for doing it, other people saw it and said, hey, there's a guy who I agree with, and he didn't care to go down there and speak. And so other people started making their voice heard. So, in this case, it was a common sentiment that people didn't want their kids wearing masks, but the ones who called were the people who did want the kids to be wearing masks all year. So that was the only people that the local representatives heard from. So when people started actually saying, hey, no, most of us don't think that way, they said, oh, well, shit, we want to be reelected. So, but then again, they reelected Lockdown Patty. So who knows? Maybe it's all for nothing. But anyway, that's about all I've got tonight, Tim. You want to close us out with anything? I'll give you the last word.
No, I don't really have a last word. I mean, yeah, I just have an odd position with all this stuff because, like, it's really hard for me to take a political stance when the problem doesn't I don't know. I feel like everybody polarizes everything into one area, and in a lot of ways, they contradict themselves at the same time. So I find myself having a lot of trouble talking about a lot of these subjects. Like, we're all talking about the situation in Chicago and how they just need some more cops and stuff. But at the same time, the same people don't want the cops to go too far. We as humans do this weird wiggly thing, and it's like we don't understand like the source of the problem, which is, too deep, and I'm definitely not going to be the one to solve it here on this channel. But like, I don't know, people confuse me. Is my last word, I guess. I don't even like the political system. I feel like it's how do I say this? I don't like the fact that people think school is cool. I think that was a giant mistake from the beginning. Like when we started saying, "Oh no,
Biggest psyop they ever pulled."
School is cool," and like, so you go out find all these like YouTube channels now that are essentially like faux intellectuals. Groups of faux intellectuals that are getting around and celebrating Thunderfoot. You know who Thunderfoot is?
I remember there was a Clint Eastwood and Jeff Bridges movie called Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, but no, I don't think so.
This is a YouTuber named Thunderfoot,
No.
and he disproves stuff. Like he was, I don't know, just scientist dude.
A debunker scientist kid.
Yeah, he's a debunker guy. Like he's one of the more popular ones. But like, and I don't have a problem with that. If you want to like use physics to debunk things, that's fine.
Right.
But his entire comment section, like 80% of it, and mind you, there's hundreds of these kinds of channels. The comment section is 80% people who just want to feel smart. And if they had found a flat Earth video 6 months before, they would be celebrating somebody else. But because they found a guru online that's smart, they all clamor to this thing and they get to celebrate how smart collectively they are. When in reality, they're not the smart one. Thunderfoot's the smart one, but they're taking credit for that intellect.
Right.
And man, that behavior is like just dripping throughout the entirety
like,
of society.
I saw this video before you, so let me berate you on your lack of intelligence that matched mine before I saw the video.
Like, instead of trying to take the time to think correctly or learn how to be correct and take the time to be wrong so you can eventually be right, everybody is just pretending like they're right about everything right from the get-go. Man, I don't want to be mean about this stuff, but like, I've seen people post stuff, and by the way they word it, you're like, you just found out about this like 15 minutes ago.
Yep.
And you're like on a death stance and a diatribe about this new subject that you found out about. I just don't know why we do that. Like, we're so afraid of being wrong, and that's a danger to go through life.
Yep, and that's what I was talking about earlier.
You never get better.
That's what I was talking about earlier with the current thing not being rooted in any kind of morality or any kind of grounding of anything. It's just so arbitrary, and so yeah, I definitely feel what you're saying there. Well, Spill says I confused me, so people certainly confuse me. Yes, indeed. And Confucius say it's time for bed tonight. But I appreciate y'all joining us, Bill. And Joe, thank you for joining us in the chat there. And again, blessings and prayers for John from Iowa's family. And we appreciate y'all joining us. And we will see you on Sunday at 10 p.m. Hope you'll be back. Have a good night.
Meet.
Meet.